Hello, buddy. Omni here. Today marks the official release of Avengers Endgame, and I got to see this thing yesterday, and it's still sinking in. Just gonna go ahead and get this out of the way. I loved this movie. I think, honestly, this is my favorite Marvel MCU film. It's the culmination of 11 years of storytelling that began back with the first Iron Man film, and it's something that's just grown and evolved. And after last year's Infinity War, you're just like, how are they going to wrap all of this up? How are we going to get a coherent end to this, especially with certain people's contracts ending that we've heard, some people wanting to move on and do other things. um, there's a definite weight on this film to carry on a lot of expectations and give us final closure, for the end of this 11-year arc. And with Infinity War, that set the stakes so high and it executed on every cylinder and is already a feat in of itself that this exists. So many different heroes of so many different properties and licenses under the Marvel banner. Um, Deals with Sony to get Spider-Man, a lot of things that just fell into place over this beautifully constructed overtime thing. With a gigantic roster like they have, everybody has their moment to shine in this movie. This movie is a completely different tone than an Infinity War. It's much more somber. It's a mix of genres if you think about it. I'm not if I explain which genres, that could be seen as a spoiler, and I'm not going to give any spoilers in this review. I might give it a couple of days and actually talk about some of the spoiler aspects of the movie, because there's some things that I kind of want to talk about and get off my chest as well. One thing I will say is, going into this, because a lot of people like to know, there is not an end credits or mid credits scene at the end of the film. As soon as the credits roll, you are free to go. As you would with this kind of movie, it's not free of its problems. There are some issues that it does pose. There's some a little, I wouldn't say pacing problems, but there's some bits that I think could have been shortened. And there's a running gag that goes throughout the entire movie that is a little off-putting after a little while. It's hilarious at first, but the fact that it runs the full length of the film was a little bothersome. However, I don't think it I don't think it detracted from the movie as a whole. This is a hard movie to talk about because it follows up after a huge thing like Infinity War, which set the stage for so many theories, speculations with all of these characters and where they're going to go, who's staying, who's not, who survives, who doesn't, and just how they go about everything. This movie sets a pace and it sets a tone from the very beginning, and it doesn't stop. There's a few points, and you could probably find these online too, though I haven't looked at them myself because of, potential spoilers may have been involved. There's some lists out there that tell you exact moments where you should go pee during the movie because of how long this thing is. There's designated scenes, or was the recommended scenes in the film, to take a break while you have a chance and get back before it moves on. So some of the scenes, specific scenes, run on for a little bit. I think that's just be like, hey guys, it's okay. It's okay. You can go to the bathroom for a minute and come right back, please. Because there's small moments where it does take a little bit of a break, but aside from those moments, this movie is almost full gear. The first two acts are just a big setup, it's a mismatch of different tones and all that. Once you get into the final act, the third act, where everything is coming down to the wire, this movie becomes, and this is honestly quoting John Campea in his review, because I watched that earlier as well. It is a comic book lover's wet dream. It really is. You know, you may have an issue with certain things coming up. I can understand it. Some people do. There's a couple of things in the beginning and the middle that could seem a little annoying or bothersome to some people. I found out most of it charming. There's not a lot of things in the movie that didn't work for me, except for the one running gag that I'm sure you can point out if once you see it. The one thing that is constant throughout the entire movie, and you can pick it out. It's pretty obvious and thrown in your face a lot. But it's still kind of funny. But this movie, once it gets into gear, once it gets into the nitty gritty of the plot itself and their plan, it becomes the most fun superhero comic book movie action ride I've ever seen. This movie puts on a spectacle that I do not think that Marvel can top in the future, and I do not think any other franchise can replicate it. This is 11 years of work, and we've seen attempts at building this impatience and other companies and studios trying to do the same thing. Look at the Dark Universe or the DC Universe. They're just baby steps, and one DC's just baby steps at this point, trying to get their game back into gear. And the Dark Universe is completely dead as far as we can tell. The most successful universe, ironically, other than other than the MCU, is the Conjuring universe, and that's not even something you can compare it to. This movie is astounding. It has the best emotional moments that I've seen in a film. I was teared up through a huge chunk of this movie. Huge chunk. There's so much heart, so much like character moments in this. Where Infinity War, I think it suffered a little bit from, the plot had to move so fast. Infinity War was just boom, 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 boom throughout the entire movie. There wasn't really small, tender moments aside from like one or two scenes. There wasn't like a moment where the film slowed down and let you like simmer and bathe in like the emotions of the moment. This being right after that tragic end of Infinity War, you get to feel how the characters are feeling after this. You get to see how desperate people are to rectify what happened. You feel that desperation, you feel the pain, and you feel all of these things throughout this movie, and it takes the time and builds on them. And there's a lot of really, really intimate moments with these characters. I would say the first two acts of this movie is mostly a character-driven story. It's yes, the plot is the main driver, but the characters and how they interact, how they stick to their guns, they build up and build themselves up and build each other up in order to get through all of this. Like, it's really touching and it really great, and the payoff towards the end is spectacular. There is, without giving any of it away, it's the biggest spectacle you could think of. Like, if you were a comic book fan, or you watched these shows or the cartoons growing up, and you're just like, man, if only we could see something like this for real. This is what you probably thought of and above. At least I can say that. I grew up with like the X-Men shows, the Spider-Man cartoon, Batman the animated series, Superman, all Justice League, all these things, and nowhere near what I would have expected. It is insane what they pull off at the end of this. I don't know what the MCU is going to be like from here on. They've talked about maybe doing another saga or thread similar to building up Thanos with something else in the future. Originally, Kevin Feige has said after this, they're just going to follow the individual characters' stories after that, rather than having a universal arc like Thanos and the Infinity Stones. Um, However, after the success of Avengers Infinity War, he did say that it would be a challenge and he does want to try to see if they can pull off something else. I don't know what it will be. They did acquire the Fox properties now. They have Silver Surfer, Doctor Doom, the Fantastic Four, Galactus, a lot of the Celestials, and the more universal level characters that they can play with now. That could open it up, but I just don't think that you can replicate this kind of cultural feeling, this kind of movement, this build up. This was a once in a lifetime thing. That's how I feel about it. I do not think this can be replicated, and I don't know how anything could top it. Now, is this a 10 out of 10 movie? No. No, it's not. Now, you get the same enjoyment out of this movie as I did if you're stepping into this for the first time? Probably not. You'll get a fun ride for sure, I would say, but I don't think you'll get the same emotional impact or value out of it as somebody who stuck around from the beginning and watched this universe grow. There's a lot of callbacks and a lot of tie-ins that thread the entire MCU together beautifully in this, and it really helps that you've been there through the entire journey. Do you have to know? As long as you've seen some of them, I'm sure you get a lot of it. This really pays off for a fan that has seen every film from the beginning, and it really pays tribute to your loyalty and your growth with this franchise and this series and these characters. And that's why I can't say that it's a perfect film. I would, like I said, I wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10 because as a standalone movie, it doesn't work. These characters were introduced in a slew of films that came before this. You can't jump into this movie and expect it to stand on its own legs if you haven't seen any of the previous movies. I Again, you'll get a fun spectacle ride out of it, but you won't get the full package. I'm speaking clearly as this type of film, the hype and the impact that it's going to have, the visual spectacle, the payoff and reward for the characters for sticking around for 11 years following this franchise. It They had an impossible task and they freaking did it. That's all I have to say. I don't know how to talk about this. The cinematography is gorgeous in this movie. The sound design is gorgeous in this movie. It's so amazingly shot, directed. There is nothing in this that drops the ball except for a couple of moments. And, with how much they have to tie up, there's a couple of things that I don't know how it's going to pay off going forward. Because there's some things that I think cause some continuity problems. If you see it, you'll probably know which moments I'm talking about, and that's really the only lingering things that stick out in my mind as a negative, aside from, like I said, that running gag that didn't really sit well with me throughout the entire film. I don't think that should have been throughout the entire film. Aside from that, the only other things is like, it's just like, there's some things that happen in the second act that makes me question some things. And again, I can't talk about it yet because it would spoil something. And this movie, you need to go in this completely blind. There's a lot of things that a lot of people predicted or hoped would happen that definitely do happen. But there's a lot of things that people thought were going to happen or thought would not happen, and they did or didn't. I'm going to see this again. I will see this movie again before it is out of theaters. I have to. I want to get right back into it and relive this experience. Now knowing how it all plays out and see if I can pick together clues that I might have missed throughout going through the film, maybe get some answers, maybe stronger answers towards some of the continuity things that I was talking about. Again, can't talk about it, but this movie's great. It is worth the wait. It is worth the build up. This is the best thrill ride I've ever ridden in a chair that doesn't move. That's all I gotta say about it. I freaking love that movie. I am dumbfounded that this exists. I have no idea the painstaking efforts and struggles that went through making this happen. Everybody that's involved needs a freaking pat on the back and a huge hug. I mean, I know most of the people got paid pretty well, but I mean everyone down to the dime, down to the dollar, down to every role that it took, to the person just handing out drinks, needs a freaking pat on the back for being involved with this movie, because it shouldn't exist. A movie like this should not have come to be. They did something that should not have been done. It should not have been possible to do. But through sheer will and luck and some hopeful planning and a lot of talented people, they pulled off an 11-year, 22 movie story arc that pays off at the end. After 11 years of a journey, it had a great beginning with Iron Man, and all I gotta say, this saga ends the best way, and probably the only way that it could. With the story that they built and the story they were wanting to tell, this movie is great. If you it's hard to get your tickets right now. Our showing was sold out, and it's sold out in a lot of places. If you're in a higher population area, you're probably going to have some trouble seeing it this weekend. But do keep trying. Check for tickets. See this movie. It is worth every moment. See it again. See it 8 times. Because we're not going to see any spectacle or anything else like this again. We won't. Not even from Marvel. I swear they will not be able to replicate this. And if anything, it'll just be a cheaper version because we've already got this. It'll just be, oh, we'll try that thing again with a different character, with a different set of characters, maybe. Who knows? It just won't be the same because it wasn't the first time. This is a mark in history. Infinity War and Endgame are marks in film history. They will be. It's ridiculous, it's crazy, and it's amazing. And these past 10 years, even going back into 15 years, have been the best in comic book fandom on the big screen. From the Dark Knight series, going forward into the beginnings of the MCU, and hopefully into what may come in the future. DC's finally getting their feet kind of firm on the ground. So we have some hopefully good things to see from them here following Marvel's big swan song. Next month we have Spider-Man Far From Home. We still have MCU stuff coming, but we can still follow the characters that are still here, follow the characters that will still be around, and see what they do. Who knows? They may pull off the impossible again and do something crazy here in the future with whatever comes next. Prove me wrong, Marvel. Prove me wrong. That's what I want. I would love that. I would not be upset in the least if somehow you would be able to top this. I think for me, because of where I came into the journey, this is the peak. This is the pinnacle. For me, it may just be downhill from here. Who knows? The future is a big fog at this point because they've kept as much as they can quiet about where things are going after this. We know some people still had sequels. There's another Spider-Man movie coming out. We knew there was a Doctor Strange 2. We knew there was a Black Panther 2. And a Guardians of the Galaxy 3. We don't know if they take place before Infinity War and Endgame. We don't know if they take place after. I got nothing else to add to this. See this movie. Please. It deserves every ticket that it gets. That's it. That's it for today, guys. Thank you for listening to me babble about this movie. We'll come back and we'll talk about some things here in a couple of days. I've probably let this sit in theaters for a week, and then we'll do a spoiler talk, just to avoid ruining anything for anybody that might just, you know, accidentally click on this before they even get their tickets. If you can even get your tickets this weekend. So yeah, that's it for now. Thanks guys for stopping in. If you like this, leave your thoughts and your speculations, your theories. What do you think about the movie? What did you think about this? What are you looking for after this? Let me know down in the comments below, and like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.